favorite social hacks as an introvert. I have a really hard time walking up to strangers and talking to them, especially at a new event. But I've used this. I found confidence a long time ago in being on stage and like performing. So if I give a lightning talk at a new conference where I don't know anybody, after I give that lightning talk, everybody knows me. When the ice is broken, they all come up and talk to me.
I love that. Being an introvert, that makes this whole thing just so much more challenging. I'm in the open environment, and to me, the challenge is not that, the imposter syndrome kind of things that people see me and what if I say something stupid? I mean, that's one thing, but what's really hard for me to overcome is the social networking that you just kind of sometimes have to do and you're obligated to do, and it's part of your job to do. I like being on stage for that reason. I prefer doing panels because then you can have a sort of a half formal conversation as opposed to, you're giving a talk and then everybody stares at you. That can still intimidate me even up until today. But panels are pretty great. It's like you're having a conversation with fellow panelists, with the audience, and we're all just having a big group chat. And after that, people come up to you and they will start talking to you, and they have the first topic or the question, and then you can just focus on the question and the topic, and then you don't have to break down that wall of I have to walk up to that person and make a small talk, which is super uncomfortable and just, yeah, love that hack.
This is very reminiscent of open source at large, right? Which I find very unintuitive in many different ways of dealing with companies and business. But what I'm hearing you both say is if you're a significant introvert, the best way to avoid having to talk to people is by going up on stage and talking to people. Is this what I've garnered from this conversation?
This is exactly what you're hearing. Yes.
Okay, just so I'm sure. Okay, good.
It's super hard for me to walk up to a stranger who maybe I recognize from the internet. They're super cool. I follow them on Twitter for years. I walk up and I blush, I get flustered. I completely embarrassed myself the first time I met Ian in Coldwater because of this, like internet persona. It's fine now. Yeah, and then I get on stage and I'm in my role on stage. I know the social rules and the cues and the structure of a performance or a talk or a lightning talk or a panel. Like I can play that role.
Another thing that I've been kind of sort of struggling with a little bit is I'm a community manager for two projects, and that's mainly social interaction with a lot of people. Like, what do community managers do? They make sure that everything works smoothly within the community. So you step in when something is not going well, and you have to talk to people. So when you build relationship with a few key people in the community, then talking to them is kind of fine. But like I personally cannot build that relationship with like 20, 30, how many people who are still like important part of the community, maintainers. So like I have these periods when I talk to a few people and then that completely drains down my energy, even if we solved every problem that we had. And then I have this like next three people who I should talk to, and I drag it out for days and weeks. And well, it differs, or it varies based on other circumstances in life. But just it's so interesting that I know who the people are, and starting the conversation even on a chat platform is just so painful, and I haven't cracked that nut yet, how I can trick my brain into not feeling that like a huge rock that I have to climb first. I love my job though, but this one I
So much of what we do in sort of managing ourselves and our own energy and capacity for this work is finding ways to trick our brain.
100%. And this one I haven't found yet, but if anyone has the answer, comment below.
only thing it reminds me of is how I tricked my brain to get over being afraid of going on stage. I used to have a terrible fear of speaking, which you'd never know from seeing me today. Um, it was the second time I gave a talk at the MySQL conference, I think, or it might have been OSCON, O'Reilly's open source conference. And I was coming out of the green room and I saw one of the folks that I knew from the community, and I'd seen him on stage a whole lot, Florian Haas, MySQL developer back in the day,
Yep.
still around. And he was so nervous. I'd never seen him nervous when I had seen him on stage. He was so calm and collected and a great presenter. And I'm like, Florian, my friend, what's wrong? It's like, oh, I just had the jitters before my talk. And it blew me away to see this person that I knew from the community, from a persona, having a very human moment, just like my human moments of being nervous before giving a talk. Is that cool? Okay. We all just get nervous, and that's just a body cue. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I realized about my own body. I kind of do the same. I just, pacing up and down, back and forth. Like I have to build up adrenaline in my body. So freaking myself out is the way to do it. And I'm searching for nicer ways to get there.
I imagine a sword fight. A long time ago, I studied martial arts, and I've had actual steel swords swung at me with one in my hand and defended against them. Not in anger, but in practice. If I can do that, standing on stage and talking to people who are actually there to hear me, like they're there to learn, it's not that scary. Like not nearly as it shouldn't be as adrenaline inducing as an actual sword being swung at me. So I run through that.
That's a good one. I like that. I'm trying to get into this sort of talking to the audience, like we are having a conversation, kind of talking to the audience as opposed to just throwing information at the audience. And I'm trying to, get the audience involved in when I'm giving talks, like asking questions, like raise your hand or walk up to the microphone and tell me XYZ. And I kind of found that it works well, and it also helps engaging people in the audience a little more. Keeping the audience exercised is a way to keep them engaged. And at the same time, with that exercise, I kind of trick my own brain into, I'm not even on stage. It's just a big group meeting, which I'm totally comfortable with.
About like 6 years ago, I began adding to the beginning of most of my talks just a little shout out to the audience, like, hey, I want this to be a conversation. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and please just speak up, raise a hand, shout something out on any slide if you think that's important. It works well in some audiences, doesn't work as well with others. But it's really a good way to discharge that tension I feel as an introvert getting up on stage. Like, okay, I'm going to shift this from giving a presentation, a monologue for the next 60 minutes to here's a couple friends in the front row and familiar faces. We're going to have a chat.
It's actually a good one. I really like it. It doesn't always work, as you say, but when it does, it makes the experience, I think, for everybody so much nicer.
You use the term performer mode, Aeva, and that's very much the way I am. I spent a reasonable amount of time on stage as a kid and through high school and so forth. And so I again have always been an introvert. So somewhere along there, I just had this performer switch, is what I've always called it, right? And I just switched my mode, and I'm unflappable, right? Anything can break, anything can go wrong. It doesn't really matter. The show must go on, right? It was kind of what you were taught back when you were on stage before. And so that's just always held. And I would also still say it's somewhat draining in the sense that, because you turn that on and you have that model, you're ready for, a beer and hanging out for a little
afterwards,
bit.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, that mode has always gotten me through. But for me, I always know that I'm still really some kind of physical response because all of the moisture leaves my mouth. Period. So you will never see me on stage without a bottle of water. And I don't think I'm nervous. I don't feel nervous. I'm comfortable on stage, but you will never see me on stage without a bottle of water because invariably the moisture will leave my mouth and I will cough if I don't have something to replenish. It's just something that I know about myself and I just always deal with it.
And none of us knew this our first talk.
Yeah.
Right? We've all learned these things through experience and trial and error and trying it again.
Yep.
Yeah, sometimes you have to analyze yourself. Like you figured something out, but it wasn't conscious. And then you just have to figure out what it was. It's so funny.
Yeah. And DevRel is evangelism, is open source. It's not all performative, but we are all performers.